Empires of the Undergrowth is a real-time strategy game about ants. You play as essentially the queen of your colony, kinda, in the sense that you decide everything, from what ants to make, to what to dig out, and which is your favorite ant. It's always Lucy though, so the rest might as well just give up. The story part of the game is split into 5 tiers, each with their own ant species as the focus. Each tier has around 2 documentary-style missions, each narrated and separate from one another. The first is usually an introduction to the new ant you'll be playing as, and the second one ramps up the difficulty and assumes you know what you're doing at this point. In between them is the Formicarium part, where you play as the Ereptor colony, a lab-grown species of ant that a pair of scientists will conduct experiments on. As you progress through the tiers, you can improve this colony by adding new ant species to it and upgrading them. Unfortunately for them, and us really, will be a very boring experiment because we're just going to be making workers to answer the question: is it possible to beat Empires of the Undergrowth using only workers? Let's find out. Welcome to New Home, the first level. It's a pretty simple level to learn how the game works. And meet the heroine of our story, the worker ant. Her and her sisters will carry us through the entire game all on their own. So, good luck y'all. As you can see, the workers do horrible damage and are really fragile, but on the bright side, they're cheap. I wasn't really fully sure at this point if upgrading the workers was going to be worth it, since the damage increase is minor. But it does technically make them more cost efficient, since the cost to hatch a level 3 ant is the exact same as level 1 ant. Once I had finished gathering all the food around the queen, I began by carefully digging around the level in such a way that I could avoid most encounters while maximizing the food gain, thus making it so that I would have as many workers as possible before dealing with any of the scary encounters. The smaller beetle groups aren't really super scary, but the bigger ones did require me to do a full regrouping of ants, and this is where extra workers come in handy. Since each lost ant needs to hatch from a new larva, and worker ants needs to move larvae from the queen to the respective ant tile. So the more workers we have in our nest group, which is the first one, the faster we can recover from losses. The scary enemy in the level, the Devil's Coach Horse beetles, have an area of effect spray that's pretty nasty. It hits everything in front of them. But thankfully they went down with minimal issues after the second wave of ants. While we don't have much control over our ants beyond "go here pretty please, don't eat that Lucy," we do have the option to tell any given group to either ignore food harvesting or enemies, or both if you want to. This can be used as a slight bit of micro to better surround tanky enemies instead of stacking up in front of them. For example, against the coach horse beetles here, we can micro a little bit so we don't all get sprayed and die horribly. I probably could have made some more workers during this level, but I decided to play it safe and just keep food in reserve so I could, come back from losses. Pretty simple level, not much to say. Welcome to Subjugation, another pretty simple level. We have to build 50 worker tiles and 50 soldier tiles. Upgrading a tile also counts as building it. Of course, since this is workers only, these soldiers are a complete waste of food, but we do need them for the objective. We'll just build them last. The soldiers will get to sit in a corner, somewhere far away from everything else, so they don't accidentally join any fights. They don't even get to get any food, so they're essentially just trophy ants. Freaking slackers. Which is a shame, because the stats of the soldier ant are way better than the worker ant. But, oh well. So in this level, there's a bunch of spiders sitting in cobwebs just waiting for our ants to walk too close. If an ant touches the cobweb, the spider runs out, snatches the ant, and then runs back and eats them. So we have to turn off food gathering before engaging any spiders. They aren't that difficult to kill though, so it's pretty simple even with just workers. I did accidentally tunnel to a pair earlier than intended, but we can just ignore them for the time being, so no big deal. Once we kill the first spider, then the raids begin. Every couple minutes a bunch of slaver ant soldiers will run into a nest, some will take our queen and others will try and steal our larva. The longer the mission goes on for, the bigger the raids become. Fortunately, even with just workers, they aren't that scary, so we should be fine. The first raid comes and goes, and as expected, the workers are more than capable of dealing with them. Though since I did say once you kill the first spider, that does indeed mean that technically speaking you could stall for as long as you wanted to. Just turn off combat, gather all the food, and there you go. Once we reach our ant goals, the next raid will be the last one, and since we did so during the countdown for upcoming raid, that means that once that raid is done, we finish the mission. Could probably do this one on extreme, but I had already decided hard was enough because of later missions, since I started with the ones I expected to be the hardest. But yeah, we'll get to that later. You'll see. And with that, we have reached the first Formicarium challenge. These are in between every tier of missions, and they are required to unlock the next tier. Before we start though, we have access to some upgrades for our worker ants that only apply during these Formicarium sections, using the royal jelly we get for beating missions. First, we can choose between our workers either being better workers, you know, the thing they're supposed to be doing, which is normally what I consider the much better option. However, because of what we're doing, we're going for the other options, which makes our ants do 3 times the damage, which I know, it sounds absolutely insane, until you remember that the base damage of the ant is absolute garbage, and even with this upgrade, they still do less damage than a level 1 Black Ant Soldier. So, yeah, it's nice, but it's not really, it's not gonna break anything. The other upgrade they get though is a pretty good defensive one, but it doesn't really matter during this challenge. For minor improvements, I just put all the jelly into speed. You know, gotta go fast. And even though the game keeps insisting I unlock the soldier, I'm not gonna, so you can just keep throwing a hesitate if you want to. Our nest layout is not pretty, but it's functional. The first test is just an endurance against mostly other worker ants, and there's a couple of soldiers in there, but there is an achievement for beating with just workers, so this is pretty much just a freebie. The strategy is pretty simple, we just sit at our entrance and defend. Near the end, the scientist gets a little bit carried away and starts adding more dangerous insects, but that's about it. On the bright side, look at that pretty purple ants. It's kinda cool. And now we get to play as the wood ants. Woohoo! So wood ants are awesome. Not only is the soldier super tanky, stupidly tanky, we're talking almost twice the health of a Black Ant Soldier, they also get ranged ants. So we get a choice between either mortar soldiers or rapid fire. Mortar is area of effect damage at level 3, which is really good, and rapid fire is, you know, it's rapid fire. I don't know what you expect from me. Since this mission is all about defending against really tough enemies, rapid fire is what I'll be going with this time. But then I remembered, this is workers only, so literally none of that matters, and we just have the same workers as before. Yippee! So in Rising Tide, our objective is pretty simple. Just survive 3 nights. Pretty straightforward. Each night will have a series of progressively more difficult waves, technically speaking anyway. You'll see what I mean later. So during the first day, we pretty much use a strategy that I like to call no fighting allowed, I'm just a little ant, please don't hurt me, which consists of running around with combat off and just gathering as much food as possible from the surface. After around 6 minutes had passed, the tide starts coming in, causing the water levels to increase one by one, meaning any food we didn't get on the lower levels is lost for the day. Once it reaches the top, aka right below our nest, night begins and we sit in our nest waiting for the day, wishing we had invested in a lock so hermit crabs don't just wandering uninvited. The first night consists entirely of hermit crabs. They're slow, they don't do much damage, and their abilities are that they are testing patience as they try and bore you to death with infinite damage reduction and frequent healing. I was trying to clear out some of the underground to get some extra food, but they insist this is a better use of my time, so what do I know? The third wave of them took so long to defeat that the next day was already underway by the time I was done. I really need better damage, this is horrible. Thankfully we'll never have to deal with this ever again. During the second day I try my best to gather some of the fish that appeared during the night, since it's a massive source of food. Unfortunately though, the native wood ants and the local insects have signed a pact together and they're all on the same team now, which makes it a little bit more difficult for me. Still, I managed to get a good part of it, so I'm happy. At this point I've changed over to prioritizing upgrading all my workers to level 3 instead of building more, since it might not be a massive increase in the damage, but we clearly do need more damage density or we will get overrun. I mean, 3 hermit crabs just completely shut down everything that was going on. We can't have that happen again. The rest of the day I dedicate to just clearing out more of the nest, getting all the easy food available to me without those teamers above ground, you know. Should be banned. Report them to the devs. Second night we get attacked by wolf spiders, who will run through ants at the entrance and run around the nest for a bit before they start attacking stuff. So the best approach is just to stick around the queen and let them come to us, since we can't really block them. The first one attacked while I wasn't even paying attention, because I was busy with the Devil's Coach Beetle in the back. Not really the greatest timing, but thankfully my sheer skill, as I was losing so many workers, all the respawns could deal with the spider. It's just strategy, you know, get on my level, bro. The second and third whirl spider wave aren't really much different, other than this time I'm actually ready for them, so they dealt with very little issue. Third day I managed to clear out most of the beach, meaning I'm able to make a throne of food for my queen to sit in, and all the other wood ant colonies wonder what in the world happened out there. Then it's just a matter of waiting for the final night. First wave is spiders, it goes pretty smoothly, it's a bit slow, but it's fine. The second wave though, oh boy, it's time for some Vietnam flashbacks as we now deal with 9 hermit crabs. That's right, 9! Of the thing we couldn't even kill 3 of in time earlier. So, sit back, grab some popcorn, put a movie on, and oh wait, nope, sorry, here comes the brood mother wave, all while we're still trying to deal with the god-dang hermit crab guests, because they refuse to leave. At this point, you know, just get out. Thankfully though, the spiders were very well behaved and just kind of stuck around the entrance, so yeah, we could just clean up the remaining crabs and the spider with very little issue. Our queen gets to stay in her throne of food. Man, I'm really starting to hate how little damage these workers do though. It's like, it's almost as if, and this might sound crazy, but it's almost as if they're not meant to be used as a fighting force. I don't know why I think that, but you know, it seems weird. I mean, they would have given us other options if we weren't supposed to be fighting with them, right? You know, like maybe a soldier or something, but what do I know? And now we're on to the second level of the wood ant tier, Queen of the Hill. Our objective is similar in some ways to the previous one, but it's also different. Wise words, I know. Thank you for noticing. I'm very proud of them. In this level, we are up against 2 rival colonies who have put their differences aside and are teaming up on us. Seems a bit of deja vu from last mission. One wood ant colony, like us, and a black ant colony, which is what we played in tier 1. Though they're actually making soldiers, which feels like cheating if you ask me. The nerve. Our objective? Survive 4 days, as the high tide clears out the lower grounds. You getting deja vu yet? The difference though is that in this mission the high tide doesn't go away, so as it's keep creeping up and creeping up and creeping up, eventually they'll start attacking us more and more frequently, until they drown. Fortunately, we have 2 aphid food sources right outside our nest, one on either side. These are vital to our survival here. So the first thing I do is start harvesting both of them as much as possible. Occasionally, ladybird larvae will come in and start eating the aphids. In the later days, we'll care about that, but for now, you know, whatever, have fun. There's plenty of aphids. A couple minutes later, the black ants launched their first attack against us. So it's a very minor force, but at this point, I still only have level 1 workers, so everyone needs to come together to defend. Later, we'll be able to split up. And the wood ants thought, oh, that was a brilliant technical idea, you guys, and they want to kiss up to the black ants, so they also launch their attack wave very soon after. And this is where the main problem shows itself. They're actually making the ranged ants, and they have access to mortars, which means if they reach level 3, they'll have area of effect damage, and since our workers are, well, workers, and the wood ant soldiers are tanky, this is not ideal. So the strategy every time we engage the wood ants is try to get on the ranged ants as quickly as possible so we don't, you know, sit around nibbling on the soldiers for like 10 million years while we just die in the background. I spent the first night clearing out most of the underground, bolstering up my forces and finally start upgrading them. Even though the improvements are minor, every little bit helps. On the second day, even though we lost a lot of aphids, our numbers are looking pretty healthy at this point, and we can now defend both clusters from ladybugs and start gathering food. There's still a couple of scarier pockets of insects left in our nest, but we'll deal with those later. For now, the black ants launched their first attack against us on day 2, and this time I don't even have to pull both sides to defend, I can just maintain food income and protection of the aphids. The final attack from the wood ants does make me pull level 1 away to defend, just to be on the safe side. Having successfully defended, I noticed they were very sloppily leaving food in the lower grounds, and I risked going in to grab some of it. This wasn't the best idea, as it does end up costing me around 40 ants, so that really sure was worth it, but it's about sending a message, alright. And the message is, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, so I thought I had more time, really, that's my excuse. Great message, I know. During the second night, I initially defend both sides until our good old friend, the indestructible hermit crab, shows his face on the left side, and as we've learned, refused to die. So, just on their own, it's not really a big problem. But if more insects show up, which they will, like this lovely pair of devil Kotos beetles, that means I suddenly don't like the view on that side, and I just move over to the right side, you know. And yeah, of course, the hermit crab still alive, smug little bastard. I also make use of the night to clear out some of the nest by splitting my force in half, just to get that extra little bit of food, since the right side is perfectly fine, provided no hermit crabs show their face over there. Day 3 starts off with a bang with a big attack from the black ants that I pull most of my ants to push back, followed by the wood ants shortly after. The rest of the attack of the day were pushed back with little issue. During the final night, I once again decide the left side is a bit too stinky and leave those aphids to fend for themselves. The rest of the night is relatively uneventful, even when 4 hermit crabs decide to show up. At this point, I have enough work to deal with them, and nothing else showed up to ruin it, so. With the last day upon us, the low ground ants will now try moving to the high ground as their staging point. While I was tempted to move below ground and just defend by the entrance, which is what I did in the Frontline challenges, that does make this a lot easier normally, I didn't really want to risk fighting both colonies at the same time, with the ranged ant being the bigger threat there. So I decided to stay above ground and try to move my ants around as needed. Even the bigger waves were mostly manageable with a good surround. Finally, both colonies empty out and sent everything they've got left at me, including the queens. At this point, I had amassed a huge stockpile of food to replenish losses, so it was only just a matter of how long it took to kill both sides, resulting in a victory. Honestly, with how much food I had left, I feel like I could probably do this again on extreme, but I need to stop doubting my initial decision and just stick to hard, even if I am very tempted to give it a shot. Maybe later. And with that, tier 2 is mostly done. Just the Formicarium chance left. Before starting it, I invested my Royal Jelly in some upgrades for the Queen. The first choice is between Royal Guard and Royal Decree. While normally I'd always pick Royal Guard, the guards aren't exactly workers, so out of pure principle, I'm picking Decree. Ideally, neither will ever really be relevant, but you never know. Second choice between Second Wind and an Emergency Heal, and Fierce Mother, a big area confusion effect. I went for confusion and then put the rest of my jelly into giving the Queen some more health. Just like with the first Formicarium challenge, it starts out pretty simple and we just have to sit at our entrance to hold off the swarm of ants, even as they start becoming unending. The big difference here is that spiders will be dropped in later on, so I've made a third group of workers whose job is strictly to sit on the Queen and guard her from the spiders. There's not much more to say, the first two Formicarium challenges are both pretty simple, and because workers are so cheap, we even have a massive stockpile of food to work with, so there's no real danger of failing. Not even when the scientist accidentally drops a couple of tiger beetles into the fray. The biggest danger is usually the spiders, but because I already had my workers in position, they're dealt with no problem at all. Usually the problem here is, if they catch you off guard, it can be pretty difficult to get your ants away from the front to defend against the spiders, since getting ants to not fight something when they're fighting it is pretty difficult. But with that, we're done with tier 2, and can move on to tier 3. I was initially a little concerned going to this level, because the enemy does attack you if you get too far ahead, but it wasn't actually as big a deal as I expected it to be. I've probably played too much on Impossible on this level. But welcome to the first level of tier 3, the Harvest. We're playing as the Leaf Cutter Ants now, and we have an important choice to make before we start. Nah, I'm just kidding, we don't get to use any new ants. Just good old workers, all we need. The Sisterhood is strong, and we don't need no mages, even if they can stun enemies and are really strong, and I really wish I had them. So, this is the introductory mission for the leaf cutters. As the name implies, they cut leaves. Unlike the I know, thank you, very, very, very wise words. Unlike the prior colonies, we don't actually eat insects or meat with these guys. We can only gain food by collecting leaves from plants above our nest, which we then put into leaf storage, and then our small minim workers that we don't control, but we get them for free with every ant tile. They will carry these leaves to our ant tiles, and they'll get turned into fungus that we can then use. so there's a bit of an extra step involved before we can actually start using stuff that we gather. In addition, as we use the fungus, it builds up waste, and we need a storage area for that too, otherwise we can't get more food. Our goal in this mission is to be the first colony to gather 11,000 leaves, which is actually not as bad as it sounds, while our workers are even worse somehow at gathering than the ones we had prior, at only 7 per harvest instead of 15, you know, the luxury from before. It doesn't actually take that long to gather a lot of leaves once we start getting enough workers going. Once we reach around 9,500 leaves, if we're ahead of the colony, they'll start attacking us repeatedly with a bunch of major ants. The ones that I really wish I could use, but I can't. Ideally, I really don't want to fight them, so the plan is to gather leaves fast enough that we don't have to. Apart from the occasional harassment from the local wildlife, not much actually happened in this mission. We just kinda gather leaves with our workers, make some more workers, gather some more leaves. Since we can't get food from killing things, there's really no reason to excavate the enemies in our nests, so I just build around them. There's plenty of space. Even when I did run into the enemy colony, we just kinda gathered leaves side by side. By the time I had 9,500 leaves and the enemy colony started attacking me, I actually messed up my control groups and had to try and defend inside the nest against 6 mages, which is pretty scary. Luckily for me though, half of them decided to be spec ups and just wanted to harass my supply line, instead of, you know, just going into my nest and helping the sisters fight. With how long it actually took me to kill just the 3 inside my nest, I would probably have been in a lot of troubles if the others had decided to just, you know, join in, so appreciate it, you guys. It really helped me out there. And just like that, mission is over. Remarkably little actually happened in this mission, since I just ignored all the enemies on the map. And because I'm apparently a massive liar and it was just that uneventful and hard, I decided to give it a spin on extreme, because why not? So I used a similar strategy initially, get a bunch of workers, harvest leaves, ignore all the wildlife. And this works relatively fine for the first night. Problems arise in the later nights and days to a lesser extent, because so many more critters wander the map. The big offenders during the day are definitely the bush crickets and the jumping spiders. I lost a lot of ants and such time to these 2 in my first attempt. I was still ahead though, so it wasn't really a big problem. Trapjaw ants exist, I suppose. They're annoying, but honestly compared to everything else in the map, they really don't matter, no matter how much they yearn for Senpai's attention. At some point during the second night, the nest gets invaded, just to throw a little bit of extra spiciness into the mix. It's nothing super dangerous, but it does require all workers to return to deal with it, since if I stop paying attention to what my workers are doing, something is gonna eat them. And here lies the problem. Because there's so much more in the field at night, that lead I had is slowly dwindling into me falling behind, which means I have to start playing riskier, which lead to bad times. I lost my first attempt, being 1,300 leaves behind, which meant if I had just played a little bit better, it would have been very doable. So, for my second attempt, day 1 strategy remained the same, it worked really well, ignore everything, just gather leaves. On day 2 though, the gloves were off and the workers wanted revenge, and I started dealing with the annoyances. When I went to gather from the right side, instead of just letting the jumping spiders have fun, every single one that walked into the path got killed. I also aimed to upgrade every single worker to level 2, not because they gather more leaves or have more health, I mean, they do though. No, simply because it seems that they move much faster when they carry things, and it makes a huge difference in gathering speed. Out of nowhere, the enemy colony attacked me, but the game didn't notify me like it normally would, so not really sure what happened there, and it did catch me a bit off guard. Thankfully, I had already pulled all my workers inside to avoid some scary insects earlier, so I held off with little issue. They attacked me another 2 times, but it didn't really matter since I had already begun the final harvest needed to win. So all I had to do was just sit back and relax. Probably won't do that with any of the others, but let's be honest, this would have been a pretty lame segment if I hadn't, because Hard really was just a letdown, so I feel it was for the better than I did. Oh boy, where do I even begin with this one? This was a doozy. Going into it, I honestly didn't really expect it to be that bad. I mean, yeah, I knew there'd be fighting, but we've done that before already, so it seemed doable. How wrong I was. This took over 4 hours of repeatedly bashing my little ant head against the food stalls. So, to begin with, the objective is pretty simple. Just push the army ants back. That's it. How do you do that? You kill them. A progress bar appears at the top of the screen when the army ants are present on the map and increases as more of them arrive. If it reaches the end, we lose. I assume anyway, I've never actually had it fill all the way. Along the way, it has 2 little markers on it. Each of these pushes the army ants close to my nest. Every army ant we kill reduces the bar. Since I'm not really in any shape to kill any army ants on day 1, I just spent the entire day gathering leaves and building up an army of workers. There's tons of food in this map and a lot of it is around the nest, so growing relatively fast isn't actually an issue. There's also a generous amount of nest space available to us without needing to fight anything. We also started with 7 weird looking ants. I think they call like media or something. They claim to be leafcutter ants, but they sure don't look like workers, so we made sure to shoot them out of our nest. No imposters around here! Things go smoothly the second night, since we technically begin during the night, so on day 2 I decided to start pushing the army ants back a little. It requires a bit of a careful dance, since the army ant soldiers are really scary in larger numbers, so when too many start stacking up I have to pull everyone away and then back in when the army ant soldiers leave. Didn't make a whole lot of progress, it just ended up stalling them, so back to food gathering I went for the 3rd night, and this is where trouble begins. The nighttime insects at this point are starting to not only be numerous, but also very dangerous. Some can still be ignored and run by currently, but that unfortunately will not last long, and we are even already starting to get chased back to the nest by big velvet worms. Spending almost 1,000 food, I managed to barely push the army ants back by the time the day ends, meaning I need to start pushing them sooner and more aggressively to make any progress. Also this happened. Legend says she's still dancing to Press the Leaf to this day. And now, the nighttime is just not viable to gather anymore. There are too many dangerous enemies around, and they're way too plentiful. I can't fight them without losing too much food in the progress, so I can't venture out onto the map. Which means, during the next army ant push, I run out of food, and have to retreat to my nest. On the bright side, I do push them back to the left side, so I just need a little bit more, and we should have this. My resolve strengthened, I dedicate the rest of the day to gather food. Oh, how naive I was. To cut a long story short, this is only 1 hour into the 2-hour attempt. I was nowhere near close to winning, and I could not make any progress beyond this part. So, it's just not happening on hard. After 2 hours, not making any progress at all during the day, the map is nearly out of food, and the constant harassment from the local wildlife makes reinforcement completely inconsistent. The army ants are also super dangerous when they start stacking up, which they constantly do, because my kill speed is so slow. While I can amass a pretty good chunk of food every day once the army ants leave, I only get 1 good run before the forest is completely off limits from all the wildlife. When the next day starts, because I have to wait for the forest to be relatively safe to traverse, which it still isn't, by the time I can get to the army ants, they've already undone most of the previous night's progress. And I'll end up spending almost all the food gathered just to get them back to more or less where I left off during the last night. Rinse and repeat. I could keep trying, but I've already been bashing my little anthead against the giant whip spider long enough on this level. I feel like after 2 hours, it's fair to say, I can't do this on hard. I'll try lowering the difficulty, see if that helps. Medium, unfortunately, isn't much easier, as the main problem, the high amount of harassment to reinforcement and supply lines, gets really bad after the first few days. And I'm still unable to harvest much at all at night beyond that point, which limits how much I can grow stronger, since all that I harvest pretty much needs to be used to fight the army ants. The main problem is that the army ant soldiers boost the attack of nearby allies when it attacks, meaning my already frail and weak workers just get completely torn to shreds when the soldiers stack up, which really doesn't take long, as we've seen before. It doesn't help that this mantis being such a jerk the entire time, and this happens way too often. In order to kill this thing, I need to dedicate every single ant I have to it, and even then it takes ages because it heals. And if I do that, the army ants make progress. If I ignore it, it kills so many workers. There's really no great option when they decide to show up and ruin things. I just have to take it. After spending another hour in this mission on medium, bashing my little ant head against a bush cricket with the exact same results and things happening and running out of food entirely, I've decided to try one final time on easy. If I can't finish it there, I'll just stop trying and move on. If I was able to gather food more safely during the night, I might have stood a chance. Yeah, so would have guessed, reducing the health of all enemies by 50% and reducing the amount of insects harassing me during the night and day maybe makes a huge difference. Not only am I able to keep harvesting during pretty much every single night, the enemies that do decide to jump by ants are easily, well, dealt with. The mantis and bush crickets still eat all my workers because the damage they deal isn't really changed, just their health. Which kinda shows how much our terrible lack of damage is holding us back. This is not a good sign of things to come. During the second day, I pushed the army ants back a fair bit and then just resumed harvesting since I was starting to run low on food. This continued all throughout the night, even earning us our very own whip spider cheerleader, who just kinda watched. As a result, when the third day finally hit, my ants were pretty well upgraded and had a huge stockpile of food, so I just aggressively pushed and won. And just like that, victory was mine, with food to spare, as I got a narration I most definitely didn't deserve. I didn't really like having to go down 2 difficulties on this one, but I feel I didn't have much choice. I did not expect this mission to be such a roadblock. So here we are, the third from a Carom challenge, possibly the final experiment. Our queen has been relocated, so I was able to make a slightly more visually appealing nest. This time it's actually a much more difficult one compared to the first one. We're up against another colony, like ourselves. However, we're limited to just 150 ants, which is not that many, while the opposing colony has 259 ants. That's almost twice what we have. And if that's not bad enough, the army ants from the last mission that forced us down to easy, yeah, they have those. And the slave maker ants that we're up against in Subjugation. And the trapjaw ants that, I guess, harassed us in the harvest, those guys exist too. I'm going to be perfectly honest, I had little expectation of beating this level on hard. My plan going into this was to try and starve the enemy colony out, war of attrition style. Even so, I decided to give it a try on hard, knowing perfectly well there was no chance it would work. Why, you might ask? Well, while it is possible to starve out the other colony, the problem is, on hard and above, the enemy queen has the Royal Guard upgrade, the one that spawns 3 guards and attaches all of their ants at no cost. While it does have a 5-minute cooldown, the guards live for 2 minutes, meaning I'd have to be able to kill all of their ants and then their queen in less than 3 minutes after it triggers. To make things better, or worse, they also get free food after each ability triggers. So, yeah, it's not really super great. So, I tried to be cheeky and sneak in to assassinate the queen, but they have little ants on the ground still, just guarding the way. I did get to see they have around 1,800 food, so it's not all that much to burn through. We do have to be careful where we fight though. If we fight in their side too much, the hand of the scientist will sometimes start squishing large groups of our ants. This first attempt was really just me being naive. I already knew I was not going to win this one on hard, but I did want to give our girls a chance. It didn't go well, and soon enough they're in our nest, and from here it's only a matter of time before it's game over. So I got more realistic and tried again on medium, since they won't have those upgrades. In this attempt, I also wanted to revisit my assassination plans by hiding one of my 4 groups of ants on their side of the battlefield, and then I was going to try and sneak them around into the nest when they were all busy killing everything I owned. Unfortunately, the enemy colony wanted nothing to do with this plan and kept chasing down my super secret squad. So I decided YOLO and just sent a different group in to try the same thing. To say it went poorly is an understatement. So I stopped trying to be fancy and just wanted to see how well I'd fare in trying to stuff them out, and let's just say history repeated itself to no one's surprise. Not wanting to give up that easily, I pushed it down to easy and went for it again, figuring that should be doable, right? Yeah, no. I'm not sure what the difference is between medium and easy, but it went about as well as everything else. That is to say, a massive failure. So that's it, right? I tried and failed, and there's no way I can win the war of attrition this way. Correct. I can't win it that way. But remember my failed, sneaky, super secret ant force strategy attempt? Well, I figured since they were eager to chase them down, maybe, just maybe, I could make use of that and pick off the small groups of them at a time, So, I went back and tried it. One squad was dedicated entirely to just avoiding the enemies, while the other 3 sat in the tunnel until a beatable group showed up, then I'd send them in for the kill. It is exactly as stupid as it sounds, and I'm honestly amazed it even worked as well as it did. After several minutes of this, I felt there was less and less enemies and saw an opening to invade their nest, so I did. They were, as expected, entirely out of food, so now I just needed to get enough ants inside to kill the queen and guarding workers. I don't actually have to kill all the remaining ants above ground, just the queen. A minute of dancing around later and I snuck my secret hit squad into the nest. It wasn't quite enough, so after regrouping I sent all my ants in to finish off the queen. In the process, I did also kill pretty much all the soldiers, so I suppose there's that. But, as I said, I'm not sure what the difference is between easy and medium in this, so would this work on medium too? The answer is yes, it would. Since you already get the gist of how it worked, have a look at this massive annoyance they formed in the middle of my escape path, which kinda make things a little trickier. Eventually I just snuck in early to try and secure the win, since all the soldiers were being really annoying. This caused the enemy to send all their ants at me, which made me panic because no way I was going to kill all that, so I panicked, sent everyone towards their nest too. So I won while their soldiers were kicking my ass. Was there any reason to do it again on medium? No, it just took longer. But it was strangely fun to play a ring around the rosy on their side. Welcome to Tier 4. Here we play as fire ants, who only have access to workers and soldiers and are all about large numbers of soldiers and then mounting bigger enemies to use as stingers, which is cool stuff that we just don't get to use. This and the next mission are actually the ones I initially started with, as I mentioned in the beginning, simply because both of these were the ones that I was the most concerned with. Not because they're much harder than the rest normally, but because both have really dangerous enemies that while normally are no issue, here they did concern me. Starting with Cold Blood, while this mission doesn't have a hard time limit on it, it does have a soft time limit on it, more so when we're just using workers. Every day that we spend, the big bullfrog boss grows stronger, making it harder to kill it. Not only that, the nightly waves, yes, this mission has nightly waves, very exciting, also get progressively stronger, and both enemy ant colonies start raiding us eventually. The little black ant colony will attack us from day 1, and the big head ants will do it from day 4. What this all means is that I knew I had only so much time to work with before it would all be way too much to handle, hence why I started with these two on extreme, spent several hours on both with a little luck, and then decided that I'd rather have fun with this than bash my little ant head against a bullfrog over and over, and so just settled on hard. Which was still a challenge on these levels, but it was much more tolerable. While I could definitely see a way to beat both on extreme, I just didn't want to invest the time required because the slightest mistake undoes all of my progress. And since there's no way to save in this game, that means having to do the entire mission all over again. Anyway, back to the mission. So as you might have noticed, I restarted this mission a couple of times because I was looking for some very specific enemy RNG. You can consider this cheesing if you want, but it makes a pretty big difference in the long run. But the plan on day 1 is, immediately take my starting workers, put them in group 1, ignore all enemies and all food, dig their way out, and then head over to the big head ants and steal their 7 aphids at the top. These are the only aphids we'll be stealing from them, and after this we'll never even engage with the big ants ever again. They don't exist anymore. Now, a Magnolia Green Jumper, which is these green spiders, and I'll probably just call them spiders, because this is a really long name, or 6-spotted tiger beetles, the green beetles that eat all ants in existence if we let them, can spawn from caves on the left side of the map and wander up to protect the aphids. If either does, that's a reset. Even if it walks away, it'll still come back up later and kill the ants as they carry the aphids back to our plant. That might seem like a minor thing that can just be ignored, and it usually can, but not here because we need those same 7 workers to then immediately after depositing the aphids at our base, they have to go down and steal 5 aphids from the little black ant colony. With both aphid packs secured, we can turn our attention back to our nest and get started properly. So every time we fail the mission, we need to repeat the above. Why is it important, I hear you ask? Because this allows us a stable source of food both in the early game and late game, which on this map is huge. We are super food starved, especially in the early parts of this map, so every bit we can get is massive, and having a steady trickle of food from aphids is vital. The wildlife on this map is really nasty. We need at least 23 workers to comfortably take on the spiders and around 40 for the beetles. And even then we'll still take massive losses. If there's more than one, it's a really bad time to be an ant, as you'll just be a part of an all-you-can-eat buffet. On the bright side, this is the only tier where our workers are different. Hey, look at that! Some change of pace. So, what's different? Well, for one, they have 10 less health across all levels. Alright, not the best start. Well, what else we got, you know? Gotta be something to make up for that. Well, they cost the same, they have the same speed, and the health's the same. Alright. So we just lose 10 health? Nothing else? No, we do actually gain something. Our damage goes up by a whopping 0.2. That's right, we go from 0.6 to 0.8. Absolutely insane. So calm down before you get too excited and call the press to break the news. Woo! Joking aside, while the damage increase isn't massive, anything helps when the damage is this low. And the Fire Ant Workers do have one more feature. They have a Venom Sting and use Venom when mounted on enemies, which, considering what we're up against, is actually a pretty big deal. Would have preferred not to lose 10 health, but hey, can't have tanky workers that also do damage now, can we? Our best friend in the early game, apart from the aphids we freed from the tyrannical overlords, is the caterpillars in the top right corner of the map. We'll be raiding these several times throughout the mission and inviting them back home to dinner. Before the first night starts properly and amphibians start swarming the area, we'll also be doing a quick raid of the pine cone in the top left, since that's another big boost in food early game. It's riskier though, since usually enemy spawns up there, but it's well worth the risk. Unfortunately, I had pinecone brain going on and forgot that the first amphibian wave actually reaches into our nest, so I got a sudden toad releasing several larvae in my nest as a birthday gift. Unfortunately, this gift can't be returned, so a mad scramble to get back to throw it out ensued. With the uninvited guests dealt with, I quickly cleared out the rest of the nest, having learned my lesson. Supposedly. I also started upgrading most of my workers to level 2, mostly so they can survive a hit from the bullfrog's area effect attack that otherwise one-hits them. Of course, it still is another one that kills them anyway, but beggars can't be choosers. I also poked the bullfrog briefly, just to get an idea of roughly how many workers would be needed. It didn't go super well, but I wasn't really expecting it to. During night 2, we even made a little salamander friend who just backseated our brick construction project. I'm sure he's furious typing a Uticon about how unsafe it was, where I guard rails and whatever else they might complain about. The nighttime raid was pretty easily dealt with, and it's super open, making it easy to surround toads, who are still only showing up in small numbers. Then I proceeded to waste the entirety of day 3 and way too much food by trying to visit the little black ants. So that was an amazing decision on my part. Bravo you bravo me, you sure showed that ant who's in charge around here, and it definitely isn't the fire ants. Yeah, no, we got our asses handed to us, so naturally I fell back and decided to try a different approach. No, I didn't. I just tried again, ramming my little ant head against the much more dangerous ant heads. Along the way, the local wildlife deciding that my plan was so bad, they tried to mercy kill it by harassing my reinforcements. So obviously, having been beaten back twice, I learned my lesson, regrouped, and focused my attention on the goal of the mission, and made the brilliant and tactical decision to throw more ants at the little black ant nest. Yeah, no, I didn't learn anything, and just repeating my amazingly bad strategy, thinking, this time for sure it'll work. Yeah, only thing it succeeded in was proving how stupid I was, so good job me, gold star. I did steal some of the aphids though, so we could just pretend the entire thing was just one big wasteful distraction. Yeah, that's it. It was just a distraction, all part of the plan. A distraction from why am I still attacking them? Oh my god, stop it! You won't win this way, leave them alone! Even the wildlife is telling you to stop. Oh my god, my past self is an absolute idiot. If anyone asks, I don't know them. Oh, look at that, you managed to burn through all your food in this mad quest of stupidity and have to go running back to your caterpillar saviors. If they could speak, they would laugh at you. Having wasted all the food in existence, we finally go back to trying to defeat the bullfrog. The caterpillars really coming in clutch, providing a fair amount of food to support respawns. This is likely to succeed, and a red velvet ant decided it wanted to ruin everything and killed every ant I owned. Cool, thanks buddy. Just what the doctor ordered. How did you know? For those unaware, red velvet ants are the spawn of Satan. They start out innocent enough, just doing a little nibble here and there, then suddenly they go all Super Saiyan at around half health and start doing massive area damage to every ant on the entire map and attack infinite times per second. Or rather, they gain an area effect attack and attack much faster. But yeah, same thing. As if everything wasn't already going perfectly according to plan, now the little black ants decided that they needed to come steal my aphids. Which is super rude, and I'd never do something like that to them, so I'm not sure why they're being so mean to me. I did nothing to deserve this. If I had more food stores, I probably would have just ignored the raid and kept attacking the bullfrog, but I wasn't really fully comfortable with what I had and decided to play it safe. Which then led into the scariest night raid yet, with way more toads than the previous one, forcing me to really focus and split up my army to try and deal with them. Thankfully, I did have the foresight to clear out all the dirt I could, so I had a lot of space to move around in, but those 7 toads all stacked up on each other really made me concerned I have to restart this level. Since I don't think I've explained yet, toads are capable of eating every single ant in front of them with a single attack, which also doubles and heals them, which means in large numbers they can burn through ants like it's nobody's business. Having survived that nightmare, I decided that, yeah, no, I don't want to deal with another night raid, and immediately returned to attacking the little black ant nest because that went so well last time. No, I'm kidding. I was actually smart and attacked the bullfrog again. With all the food from the nightly toads being harvested by my nest workers, I had a pretty comfortable 900 food to work with, enough for hundreds of respawns. I actually managed to defeat the bullfrog with way more food to spare than I expected, so I had a ton of food for the horrors to come. Because fun fact, once you kill the bullfrog, you have to deal with another nightly raid. If you thought the previous one was scary, this next one is that, but cranked up to 11. Not only do we have to defend against our lovely friends, the I eat all ants ever toads, we also have to deal with salamanders. I guess he got tired of backseating our bridge building and decided to call in the gang to ruin our day. With my 3 groups of workers, I was able to split them up so 2 defended down below and 1 up top, thus allowing the nest workers to replenish losses without getting eaten, which, when you lose hundreds of ants, it's pretty important. And with that, the final toad falls, and victory is mine, with honestly a lot more food to spare than I imagined, so I probably could have made more workers if I wanted to, or upgraded them a little bit more, but at the same time, the queen needs her food thrown, so I'll take it. So now we're on to the second of the fire ant missions. This one is all about having your fire ants make bridges across bodies of water, something we made very mild use of in Cold Blood. The reason being, workers are really bad at making bridges compared to soldiers. Like, really bad. I don't have exact numbers, but it feels like you need around 3 times the amount. Pretty sure all you need to cross this with soldiers is like 21. Meanwhile here, I'm barely able to get across with 86 ants. Reason being, worker ants are tiny compared to the soldiers, and it's the size that matters here, regardless of what you might claim. So bridges are mostly not viable in this, especially early on. Problem is, a lot of the really good stuff is behind bridges. Anyway, on to the mission. Pretty much all of my failed footage is from Extreme. This is when I made the switch before trying Cold Blood. Yeah, I started with this one. Great choice, me. Really picked an easy one to begin with. The objective is pretty simple. Just make a lot of ants. That's it. On hard, we have to make 330 workers. On Extreme, it's 375. The catch is there's a time limit, and the map gets smaller and smaller with stronger and stronger enemies appearing. This does mean upgrading is undesirable, generally speaking, since that's food that could have been going towards another ant towards the objective. So early on, we already have an obstacle. The first waves can vary greatly depending on how RNG decides to behave. It's split into 2 waves, technically 3. The first is the green spiders. There's 5 in Extreme, 4 on hard. The ideal scenario is that they come at you one by one from either the top or bottom path, in which case it's super doable and you can start working on one of the other 2 sides to weaken them. I was trying out different things in this run, like upgrading some ants so they could take 2 hits from the spiders instead of 1, and the spiders do 18 damage. It sorta caused better consistency with the spiders, but it really wasn't that great otherwise. After dealing with the spiders, we then need to immediately weaken one of the other 2 attacks, ideally the one with just the larval chicken beetles, as they're actually the bigger threat, believe it or not, because they're easier to kill than the larval force bombardier beetles, but they dish out similar damage while only having 50 health compared to 300. We do not want to be stuck attacking the wrong ones while the others dish out damage. I lost a lot of runs to this exact problem, and even if I get past this, the entire problem starts up again the next time, on day 3, when the next wave starts happening. Only thing, the enemies this time are much scarier. I couldn't find a way to get past both consistently, which means it was more bashing my little antheads against the boggy soil of the marsh as my nest turns into a buffet repeatedly. You really feel the missing 10 healthy workers here, they're practically made of tissue paper. But enough of the extreme complaining. Oh, I get it, extreme because of the difficulty. Yeah, no, I shouldn't have said anything. Let's continue. Early game struggles aside, I did learn a few things during my many failed attempts. The first is that it's possible to go visit the MVP of these missions, the caterpillars in the top right of the map, who are more than happy to donate to our cause. Thank you, friends. Which is going to be super useful, because another thing I discovered that I actually wasn't aware of is that you can avoid dealing with most of the daily nest raids if you're just a little bit careful early on. You see, in your nest you have 4 sets of tunnels, one in the top left, top right, bottom left, and bottom right. The exclamation mark is an enemy moving through it. Each of these have a lot of very tempting and very useful food in them, especially the top left one, but tunneling into them means you are now exposed. In the early days, this is just a hassle, as it's just a larval tickle beetle, which is really no issue to handle. They're annoying if they catch you off guard, but that's about it. In the later days though, we start getting toads using the tunnels, and if those catch us off guard, that's trouble. Fortunately, as I discovered, they don't actually dig their way to you in this mission, they just casually walk through the tunnel if you don't have it exposed yet, meaning we don't have to deal with the majority of it since we are exposed to fewer tunnels. I accidentally dug into the bottom right one though, didn't really intend to. Right, back to the run. So after dealing with the spiders, who were being very nice and coming out a single file from the top path, the ideal situation, I then rushed to deal with the lava wave, before cleaning up the rest. I did run out of food, so it got a little spicy, but it was manageable. After dealing with them, there's a quiet period that can be used to gather otherwise tricky to get food before amphibians start showing up to ruin things. Once the night is passed and the toads mostly leave, we can finally try bridging to get some aphids, with only 127 ants, a reasonable amount to need. During our favorite pastime activity, caterpillar raiding, our red villain ant decided they want to be a jerk, which was actually a good thing since we could deal with it relatively early. It is probably the biggest threat for the upcoming wave, so even if it killed way more ants than it had any right to, getting rid of it early is massive. We can then start cleaning out the top area of bombardier beetles, meaning we only have to deal with a single side during the attack, making it much easier. I then naively tried getting the pinecone that just got made available to us, but forgot that workers are tiny and it's not really going to work all that well, since it's only a matter of time before the easy newt showed up. Thankfully, even though it took almost 2 minutes to clear out the pinecone, it was finished just as the newt showed up. After retreating to the nest, I cleared a lot more and then got ready for the next water level increase. Not having to worry about toad invasions, I could spend most of my focus just cleaning out the incoming insects as they arrived. I realized a bit late I could probably have bridged to this aphid, but I was too busy killing the incoming insects and I think it was only for the better. I did still try though for some reason, since I only had to kill a single enemy during the attack, having taken care of everything else already. It quickly became apparent it wasn't going to work though. Rip those 40 ants who went for a little swim. Bless your souls. And since the toad wave threat was now gone, I could safely dig out the rest of my nest, which was enough food to meet our ant goal. Even if the blue skimmer decided to try and ruin things. Now all we have to do is just run past all toads, newts and skimmer, and then get up on a little high ground. Easy, right? Yeah, no, they actually caused enough issues that I decided to play it safe and make the skimmer leave just so I could move past it to the victory screen. We are approaching the end game now. One of the scientists decided to disregard the others' orders to get rid of us and has been keeping us a secret and is now conducting an experiment on us, pitting us against hybrid insects of his own creation using royal jelly. This challenge is quite literally a damage race check. There's 3 rounds of bosses and we need to kill each wave within a certain time or we lose. It's that simple. We'll be doing it on hard, but the health and stats of the hybrids are the same on easy, medium and hard for some reason, so it doesn't really matter much. Higher rewards, I guess. So our first enemy, the Herbert Scorpion, is pretty tanky. With a whopping 70,000 health and pretty good defenses, this hybrid is a tough nut to crack. Thankfully our workers are up to the job. With our defensive upgrades they can take 3 hits no matter what, which is huge! I turned off enemy mounting since after you mount it, the shell breaks and it gets a new stinger attack that has a pretty big area effect and applies a poison attack. We want to delay this as much as possible, but at some point the scientist gets impatient and if we don't kill the hybrid before time runs out, that's game over. With only a couple seconds left on the timer and over 1,500 health left, it seems so close, yet so far. So I give it another try, planning on mounting sooner to increase our damage output at the cost of higher losses. But that's what our nest worker group is for. 40 workers should be enough to replace whatever losses we'll face. The timer appears and didn't even seem like we got much closer. Maybe I need to mount the shell even sooner. So I mounted even sooner in the next attempt. Thankfully, these attempts are all really quick, with this being the start of the challenge. The timer appears, the hybrid shelf drops faster and faster, and that didn't seem to make any difference at all. Okay, since mounting seems to not make a huge difference, but we're so close damage-wise, I relocate 5 nest workers to my army workers and give it another whirl. The timer appears, and we killed it with time to spare. Getting ready for the next set of hybrids? Yes, set. I move all but one group down and out of the way. We're going to be big braining this one. That's right, we can make them fight each other. After a while, they'll get bored beating on each other, so we have to go present the forbidden candy again to incite their interest. Once one of them falls, we just swoop in and clean up the other. We actually got lucky that Praying Spider died first, yes, that's its name, since it has a massive instant killing area effect attack it likes to spam. And here comes the final hybrid, the Dragon Tugler, I think that's how you pronounce that. It has 2 attacks we need to react to, so we can't just fall asleep and watch. The first is when it starts hovering in the air for a bit, the ground under it turns bluish, white with a vortex effect. After a while, it slams down and damages and stuns any ant within that area, so we just have to walk out of it. The other is a charge attack indicated by red flowing lines on the ground, where it'll charge into a wall and stun itself briefly, allowing us some free damage. Outside of those 2 things, this fight is a free win, it isn't really that tough, and I'm barely losing any ants. After a little while, we kill it. Who would have guessed the first hybrid would be the hardest? Oh boy, here we are. The tier I've been dreading ever since the disaster that was Frontline, because the Matabele ants are all about fighting tough enemies. We're starting with Triage, the introductory missions to the Matabele, the new ant type we're playing as. They have super strong soldier ants, and medics, to bring back the dead for a second go at life. They're all about tougher ants, you can maximize value with thanks to the medic. But before I get too excited thinking this all sounds amazing, their worker is the same as the rest, so good old reliable. Funnily enough, it also has the reduced harvesting that the leaf cutter worker does. Doesn't really make much difference though, since our primary food source is termites. That's right, we have to kill termites in such a way that it's cost effective with workers. Hard doesn't seem viable. Termite raids are food negative because of all the insects everywhere. Even the earwigs, the most common one, can eat my workers rapidly and need to be focused to kill. Even just the termite workers, who I'm supposed to be feeding on by the way, are stronger than my workers. I wish I was kidding. The termite major workers, which is the one I'm running into outside, has 40 health. 15 more than my workers and does 1 damage, nearly twice what my workers do. I have literally nothing going for me in my favor there. But back to the mission. I'll get back to complaining later. The objective is just to survive 5 nights, which seems deceptively simple. So we started with 13 Matabele soldiers, which normally would be enough to start termite raids immediately. Unfortunately, they failed construction class and as such aren't qualified workers, so we had to eat them. This does give us a pretty hefty amount of food, since each soldier tile costs 150 food, so getting an early group of workers is pretty easy. With our army of 44 workers constructed, I set my sights on the left termite colony, hoping this is enough to kill at least a couple of termites, but an earwig decides to bar the way. Luckily it left so everyone could go past, but that's often not the case. Our first raid goes pretty alright, but we only have so much time to kill and leave before the soldiers show up. We cannot kill soldiers effectively, it's just not happening, so we're forced to leave. We did manage to kill a few workers, but this just shows the major issues we're facing. Since the window to harvest termites is limited to when the soldiers show up, kill speed is essential, and ours is practically non-existent. I decide to try a raid on the right nest, this time ignoring the wildlife nibbling on my ants. This turned out to be a massive mistake, as a tiger beetle decided to show up and just kill a good chunk while the earwig is still cutting off my reinforcements. So my raid consists of 17 workers, truly a force to be reckoned with. So I'm forced to leave, and after everything is said and done, I went into that raid with around 200 food, and when it was all done I had 160. What a score! So I turned to trying to clear out some underground territory, see if I can get some easier food that way, since the termites are in their nests for a little while. I should have done this much sooner, as by the end of it my army is looking much stronger with an extra 22 members, plus another 4 in my nest group. A much needed boost to my meager forces. Feeling confident in our newfound numbers, I push out during the night, trying to ignore the earwigs in my way as I begin to raid on the termites. The response is a lot slower than usual, but just as I was getting lucky, a scorpion decides that it needs to eat all my ants. Trying to get as many raids in as I can before it's too late, I managed to get a decent raid in on the right nest. Is what I would have said until a tiger beetle yet again decides to ruin everything. The workers can't outrun these guys. They'll just relentlessly chase and kill workers in one hit until they get bored, I guess. They're also really tanky, so killing them isn't really a great option either. Which happens again during my nest raid, and at this point time is running out before the first boss, so I decided then and there to reset. I won't have enough to kill. I won't have enough food to kill it at this rate. Yeah, this map has bosses. For my second attempt, I spent the entire first night just clearing out the nest to get the extra boost, since I'll need all the help I can get. And just as I finish up, the next night arrives and the termites come out of hiding. Perfect timing. This might be a good sign of things to come. To skip ahead a bit, since it's just more raiding, the moment of truth happens, the night of the first boss. I thought I could sneak in just one more quick little raid, since my food stores are looking awfully dry, but I end up getting caught a bit out of position as a result. Rushing back to the nest, this is when we'll find out just how viable this difficulty is. She has 3,200 health and is very, very angry. The food from the raid providing a massive boost might just be enough to defeat her. Unfortunately, it wasn't even close to being enough, and I run out of food and ants, while she still has plenty of health left. If the first boss is this much of a problem, the remaining two will likely prove impossible for me. So I switched to trying on easy, rel, and medium, because I need to get a feel for how viable the later bosses are with workers, before continuing to bash my little ant head against this Matabele ant. So, already at the start, I noticed something. I have 20 soldiers instead of 13, meaning I can get even more workers to my initial army. After just clearing out the donated food from the ex-soldiers, I already had 59 workers in the army, so I just decided to go raiding some termites to get a feel for how raiding will be. Answer is, pretty chill. While lots of soldiers is still dangerous, the killing speed is much faster, as expected, meaning quicker and more rewarding raids. After the termites went underground, I cleaned out some of my own underground, and that combined with only one night's worth of termite raiding, and most, if not all of my soldier workers are already at level 3. This is going to be really easy, isn't it? Yes it is. Easy unfortunately takes it a step too far. Double the food, half enemy health, and not much wildlife to harass me. If I could get just one of these during my hard attempts, I'd be golden. So with all 3 I can basically just do whatever. Still, there is the matter of the bosses, and the second and third boss are much tougher and more dangerous than the first, so we'll see how those fights go. Because I was feeling a bit silly, during the second night, yes, we're only on the second night, I just decided to kill the left termite nest entirely. Why? I don't know, I just wanted to see if I could do that first, but the spoils from doing so are pretty huge. So skipping ahead to the sun spider appearance, this is the moment of truth. How difficult will this be? And she's basically dead. Well, alright then, maybe the second boss will be more difficult. Since all I'm doing in between is termite raiding or idling when I'm lazy, let's just cut to the chase. The second boss is a giant centipede, a really durable and highly damaging creature that shows up on the night after the sun spider. I initially fight it outside the nest, but it pushes its way inside after a while. Its health is draining pretty quickly, so even as it goes to say hello to a queen, it shouldn't be an issue killing this thing. And yeah, it really wasn't. So on to the final night. So the final boss is also the one I'm most concerned about, because this guy is stupidly tanky. Up until this point I was starting to feel pretty confident about being able to beat this on medium after stomping on easy. But then the Scorpion Nation attacked. My workers are barely even denting this thing. So while the workers tickle the Scorpion to death, let's talk a bit about the final encounter and medium difficulty viability. It took roughly 5 minutes to kill this thing. This one encounter alone has made me doubt that I can even do this on medium. Before this point, yeah, sure, maybe I could. I already tried and lost the centipede, so I figured, oh, I probably just need to refine my strategy a bit and get lucky with my raids, and then I'll be able to kill it. But because on easy everything is half health and I need 5 minutes to kill a scorpion, on medium I'd need probably around 10 minutes to kill it. And considering it keeps moving closer and closer, I think it might just kill the queen sooner than that. And that's assuming I even have enough food to sustain losses for 10 minutes in a row, because once again, on easy I'm getting double food from most things, so I'd have access to half the total food I've used in this run. And which means likely less workers or less level 3s, either would severely reduce my scorpion killing speed. So there's no way I'd have this army I have now that can kill it in 5 minutes. I probably wouldn't even have been able to kill a termite nest, definitely not as early, so that massive influx of food I got from there is off limits too. And the harassment from wildlife? Oh yeah, it's bad on medium too. All combined into just making me think I can't do this in anything above easy. All the numbers seem to be against it, and so I'll just move on to the next level rather than bash my little ant hit against the termite nest. I'm not happy about it, but I just can't see a way around this core issue. I'm very much starting to see a pattern with these super combat focused missions, where I just can't output enough damage to stand much of a chance with our low durability. This level, Drive Them Back, is likely no different, since our objective here has 2 parts to it. Every single day, a swarm of driver ants appear and raids one of the 4 termite nests. Eventually, they'll kill whichever one they're attacking and target the next one the next time they show up. The first part of our objective is to at least 1 termite nest alive. Simple enough. And the other part, and this is the real kicker, is we need to end the day having killed 150 driver ants, and they can't have taken 20 termites out of the map. As we've clearly seen demonstrated time and time again, killing anything beyond the weakest of enemies takes our workers a really long time. Now, there is a saving grace in that technically we don't have to kill all 150, they just have to lose 150. It doesn't really make it much easier, but yeah, it technically is how it works. So, driver ants come in 2 flavors, small soldier and large soldier. The small one has around 85 to 130 health and does 5 to 6 to 4 damage, that's 6.4, depending on the level. The large soldier has a massive 140 to 240 health and dishes out 15 to 25 damage depending on the level. But wait, there's more. Driver ants, when they get low on health, trigger an ability. The smaller ones attack even faster the lower their health, as if we needed that, and the larger one just kind of does a big area effect attack, no big deal. All this to say, I'm very skeptical my little ants can stand up that long to kill 150 of them. But we've tried every other level on hard, so we're doing the same here before coming to our senses. So as you might have noticed, we have some sort of tunnel network around our starting area in our nest. These are stink ant tunnels. There are 4 of them in total. We can't fight stink ants. They do area effect damage and have a lot of health, and the tunnels are awful choke points. So we're super limited on space, which thankfully isn't an issue, since getting enough food to actually make a big army isn't really viable. Within a few minutes, the driver ants start showing up. On day 5, they'll move on to the last termite nest alive, meaning we only have 4 days, at most, to build up our forces. The first day is the easiest to raid in, as there's the least amount of enemies on the map, but that quickly changes, and don't you worry, there's no shortage of local annoyances to disrupt our attempts at doing so. Even scorpions want to join in. We can't kill the scorpions, it's just not happening. The earwigs, we can, if they're not too numerous. The big ones require all ants on deck, or they just won't die. Even just a single one. The moment there's more, it's time to run away. During the second day, the first termite nest falls, while I'm still just struggling to raid without getting harassed. On the bright side, the driver ants will leave behind the corpse of the termite queen for us to harvest, so that's a big chunk of food, even if our workers are pretty bad at harvesting. On the not so bright side, getting that food back to our nest is of course a problem in of itself, as our arch nemesis, the earwig, decided that hey, this is a perfect place to just stay forever. This right here, this nonsense, this is the most annoying thing that keeps happening, because what can I do about it? The ants heading back with food can't be told to take a different route, so they just clash with the earwig and die. If I try to fight them, there's now multiple earwigs, so they'll kill all my workers. If I wait for them to leave and then run out to get the food, they swoop back in and the scorpion joins in too. These earwigs are the absolute bane of my existence on this map. I hate them. I hate them so much. So, day 3 is here, and the lower left termite nest is the next to fall. So I turn my eyes to the one on the upper right. Raid goes pretty well, all things considered. Problem is, the termite soldiers stick around forever, so I have to go elsewhere to not waste my limited time. So I decide to try and see if I can be cheeky and steal from the driver ants. This was a horrible mistake, and I don't know why I thought it was a good idea. It's also further driving home the question of how in the world am I supposed to kill 150 of these things? Oh yeah, and then a lizard eats whatever survived my workers. Thanks, Obama. So now I'm with no food and missing a lot of workers, so I try harvesting the now empty termite nest queen. Maybe I'll have more luck since the nest is closer. To my surprise, there's still some food left in there, but it's already starting to despawn, so I have to be fast to grab it. Finally, my luck is turning, some easy food to replace my numbers. Still no clue how I'll kill the driver ants though. And as if the earwigs heard me starting to have hope, they decide to camp the only way back into my nest. Have I mentioned how much I hate these things? So, day 4's raid is here, my last day before I have to fight the driver ants. Well, I can't raid the top right nest, so I'll try the lower right one. Hopefully that scorpion doesn't, and it does. Even better. Unfortunately, I need the food, so I push on and try to attack the termites. And they send out guards immediately, forcing me to retreat. This nest is unraidable, and this is the only entrance to the area. The scorpion decides to add insult to injury by killing more of my retreating workers. Thanks, guy. Just what I needed. So, after salvaging some tiles and raiding what I could of the termite queen, day 5 is here and is an absolute slaughter. I stand no chance. Maybe that was just a bad fight. Let's try again on the return path. And that lone soldier just killed around 5 workers on its own. I'm starting to think I might not be able to pull this one off. Not sure why. So I give it a try on medium, and it started out pretty promising, getting some good raids in without the termites camping there forever. I'm feeling pretty good about this. But it's only a matter of time before familiar patterns start showing up. The scorpions are back. Oh, and don't worry, the earwigs are also doing their best. I foolishly tried fighting them thinking, oh, there's only 2 of them. I'm pretty sure I lost more food fighting them than I actually gained. On the bright side, for once, the local wildlife isn't just harassing me. You go, lizard! Finally, I have an ally in this mess. Or so I thought, until he then decided he wanted to betray me and eat my workers instead. Of course. At least he left, only for the earwig brigade to take his place. Hopefully you're getting the point by now, but getting anything done without soldiers to clear all these pests on this map is stupidly hard. Oh, and this guy's apparently here again now, even though he's supposed to have left, so that's nice, I guess. I didn't want those workers or any of that food anyway. Honestly, at this point, I was just so baffled by what was happening, I just stopped to watch. I already knew I lost, but this was just getting ridiculous. Yeah, nope, he's still going, just eating away. Pretty sure he ate over 50 ants all on his own. So, suffice to say, this isn't happening. And I'm going down to easy. I gave it my best try multiple times, but I mean, this is just 5 soldiers. 5. I have to kill 125 of them. Easy was, just like with Triage, a complete pushover. Really wish there was a better in between. By the time day 2 started, I decided to just see if I could win then and there, since my army was already so big. And yeah, I could. It required regrouping a few times, but I beat them back on the second day without losing any termite nest. It wasn't even close. They did manage to steal a single termite corpse though, which I found to be pretty funny. You go, little guy. But wait, there's more. Tier 5 has an extra mission in it, the nerve. Thankfully we don't have to play as the Metamedia again. I can't handle another combat-focused mission with the workers, oh my goodness. Instead, we're playing as the termites we were just raiding. The objective is to outlast the other 2 termite nests as Metabeele ants periodically raid us. Alright, never mind. Still combat focused. But what's this? Termites have 2 workers? And they actually have good stats? Is this what heaven feels like? So, termites get minor workers and major workers. Minor workers are intended to be kept in the nest and do nest jobs and eats the dead plant matter from our stockpiles and turns it into fungus we can use as food. Kinda like the leaf colors. The major workers can't do any of that and is instead just fast, tough and really good at gathering, starting out at 15 harvesting quantity and getting an extra 15 per level, meaning they can gather 45 at level 3. They're really good. Which is fortunate because there's tons of dead plant matter everywhere outside and stacks of anywhere between 30 to 90, and only 1 worker can gather from anyone at a time. The way the Metabeele raids work is, the first 2 raids always target the north nest first and then the south nest, before they then attack us. Then they'll target whichever nest puts up the least resistance, aka kill the least amount of the troops. They arrive twice per day, in the morning and the evening. Occasionally it gets too hot outside for termites and they'll take damage unless on the ground. So the priority early on is not only get a sizable amount of major workers to get food, but also get some extra minor ones to process it, then start upgrading the majors to level 2. It wouldn't be a tier 5 mission though without the wildlife being a thorn in my side. Even with these essentially super workers, at least compared to what I'm used to, earwigs are still dangerous in large numbers for the time being. But food gathering goes relatively smoothly during the night and day. Honestly, just having decent workers for a change, it's so nice. Not long after, the Metabeele targets us for their raid. This is it. We have to do more damage to them than the North Nest did, so we won't be targeted during the next raid. Or not, that's fine too, I guess. So, the next raid also targets us just after the surface got cold enough to traverse, so before gathering more food, we have to defend. This time it goes much better and we're now above other colonies, so we can focus on gathering food for a while. Here's something I completely forgot about that almost turned out bad. Occasionally, stink ants will dig around the nest and reach our little colony. It's not usually a problem, but if they dig into a group of insects, it can be pretty bad if you're not paying attention. This is totally not foreshadowing. Here's some super satisfying harvesting action for you to enjoy. It's like a magic trick. Now you see the food, and now it's gone. At some point it became pretty obvious to me that I had pretty much won, so rather than wait for the Metabeele ants to do their job, I decided to just invade the South Nest on my own to speed things up after they just got done defending a raid. They had literally nothing left, so there was very little resistance. And then there were just the 2 of us left, and North is getting raided just seconds later. So, while I sit around my nest admiring my workers, the North colony falls, and I win. Finally, a tier 5 mission I could win without lowering the difficulty. Pretty handily too. Such a big difference actually having good workers does. So, obviously, I decided to try it out on Impossible too. Things started out more or less the same, but now there's more anti-fun police around the map, so my workers are more frequently getting interrupted and or killed. Manageable so far though, my workers are still faster. The first real struggle happens during the first raid. They completely tear me apart, so I'm forced to try and hold them inside by the entrance. Which kinda works, but man, I took a lot of losses to that. But at least I did better than North, so I have some peace and quiet to rebuild. And then I again forgot about the stink ants and they released a lot of horrible insects and they assassinated my queen. Well then, that'll teach me to pay attention. Well, it seemed pretty doable though, so I give it another whirl, making sure to pay attention to the stink ants this time. As a matter of fact, I pay so much attention to them that I decided to kill off their elite assassin squad they unleashed on me, who then proceeds to kill all my ants. This isn't good. Why are earwigs just by kryptonite? Oh look, the stink ants decided to join the party. Yeah, no, sure, make yourselves at home. Thankfully, the termite king is an absolute beast who probably saved the day. Yeah, I know, not a worker, but I literally can't control or get rid of him, and he's awesome, so shut your face. Having survived that, it's Metabeele time. It's about this point I start to regret not having more minor workers, because I have so much plant matter stored up and it's not getting eaten fast enough. The raid was ugly, But we held on and are ahead of south, so I'll take it. And then a familiar story repeats itself, as ye old stink ants decide to invite every earwig in existence into my nest for a buffet. Yeah, so the thing about me having learned my lesson, apparently not. I genuinely thought I was safe from this one, since not all the stink ants actually reach you the first time they appear, but nope, that's dead again. Not going to give up so easily, I go back to bashing my little anthill against the earwigs and try again. Long story short, I unleash the earwigs to get rid of them early, but joke's on me, earwigs are the strongest creature in the known universe and they just murder everything. Yeah, so as it turns out, if they're not in a small choke point, I don't stand a chance. So I take it to extreme instead, because while I feel I can definitely do impossible, I'm having earwig PTSD and don't want to touch it again. At least extreme has less of them. Having learned to be a tactical genius, I utilized the advanced strategy of choke points to defeat the final boss of the level, that for some reason is just chilling in my nest. At some point, for some reason, the south nest suddenly sent a lot of soldiers up near my area, and I'm not really sure what in the world they were doing, but I just kind of shrugged and kept stealing from the north. After a while, I decided I could probably go kill the north nest, and quickly learned why I never attacked that one. There's always some big insect in the path up there, in this case, a centipede. Trying my best to ignore it, I push towards the nest and attack, and it's going really well, but then I remember, hey, wait a minute, the Metabelians will target me, and they're about to raid soon. I should probably return home before I lose to something stupid and avoidable again. After the raid, it's too hot to go outside, and then as soon as the temperatures are good again, the stink ants show up. I defend against the regularly scheduled stink ant visit as the Metabelians attack and finish off the north nest. Then it takes 10 million years to kill this small group of soldiers for some reason. I'm not even kidding, it took almost 2 minutes. You'd think they were earwigs in disguise. Then the funniest thing happens. As I'm in the middle of killing the southern nest, the Metabeli launch their raid against the very same one, making for a very awkward walk home after, I imagine. And just like that, it's done on extreme too. I feel I can totally do it on impossible, but for now, I'm happy with this. Because I know someone out there will be all, actually you didn't beast loud Mound standing workers only because the minor worker is the real worker, not the major worker. Invalid, run! That's the voice I imagine. You couldn't just let me have good workers for once, huh? Fine. Just for you? Let's go. I'm only 2 minutes into this mission and I already want to feed my queen to the earwigs. This is hell. They only gather 4 at a time. 4! Oh! But just upgrade them. Level 2 major doubles the food they harvest. Oh, you sweet summer child. Level 2 minor workers harvest 5. 1 more. This is going to take so long to get anything done. Oh, and they're slower than earwigs, so I can't even outrun those demons anymore. Just to give you an idea of how bad this is, I'm 11 minutes in to the mission at this point, and I still haven't cleared out the initial pockets of food. I actually managed to defend against the first raid to my surprise, but not very well, and because the gathering is so slow and I can't outrun the locals, gathering food is a constant problem. By the time the second raid hits me, I technically survive, but I'm out of food and over half my workers are dead. This isn't happening. But because it is such a dumb concept, I try again on easy. I figure if I don't have to deal with my harvesting getting interrupted as much, maybe, just maybe, I can actually gather enough food to do something useful. So, I give it another go, and yeah, the freedom to gather food is very useful. What's still an issue though, is how little the workers actually gather. But because the map is so safe, I can gather most of the time, even if really slowly, which does mean I can slowly upgrade my workers, getting that sweet 25% increase to the harvesting skills. The Metabeli raids are so small that they're a complete non-issue, though a single one just ran straight to my queen here. What a genius. At some point, apparently the north nest died to the Metabeli raid, and I was so busy just gathering food that I didn't even realize until the storyteller mentioned it, at which point I just decided to go kill the south colony out after defending their attack. And that was that. Beaten with only minor workers on easy. Honestly, it's probably doable on both medium and hard, but I do not want to deal with these slow minor workers again. This was a pain to do. If they were just either faster or could harvest a bit more, I'd be okay with it. But as it stands, I'd rather deal with the earworks again, to be honest. This was just slow and tedious. This is it, the very final level, and the thing between us and being able to say that yes, you can beat Empires of the Undergrowth with only workers. So let's get started. This will obviously have massive spoilers for how the story ends, you know. Duh. So the objective this time, for the real final experiment, is to survive the scientist's experiments. To do this, we use royal jelly to unlock resistance and then immunity to the 4 different devices in the arena. Fire in the top left, a laser in the top right, acid in the lower right, and electric shock in the lower left. Each one has 3 levels to it, requiring more and more jelly. We obviously don't have enough jelly right now, but as the challenge goes on, jelly will be dropped in, so we want to rush in to grab it. When any upgrade reaches the 3rd level, not only are we immune to that device, if the ant gets hit by it, they'll get some sort of buff. This mission is very dialogue heavy, so it takes a while for things to get going, plus it starts slowly to ease you into how things work. After the first wave of tests, 2 sides start being active at a time instead of just 1, and occasionally he'll drop in some insects for us to deal with, like these mantises, whichever, that are about to be roasted. Once we're through that section, it's 3 devices at once, with more and more insects being added. Once immunity to all 4 has been obtained, I divert all focus to just guarding the nest entrance, since I have no further use for the jelly. The sooner the better, since it only gets more hectic the longer it goes on. By the time we're required to have all the upgrades maxed, we've had them for a couple of minutes, so it's all good. So far so good, but it's about to get really spicy, and we are about to get to the part where I think workers alone won't cut it. So far they've been able to handle everything though. So, as I said earlier, massive spoilers obviously, but we now have access to a giant hand of death, aka the scientist. Trust me, it makes sense in the story. I'm trying my absolute best to not make use of it, since, you know, he's not a worker. But at this point, we are going to get absolutely flooded by enemies, and they start flooding my nests, so I'm unfortunately forced into using him to deal with the onslaught. There's just way too many. Even as I relocated some workers to nest duties, I just can't keep up with it. My nest turned into an absolute mess at this point because my pride stopped me from using the hand earlier and things start to look a little grim. The hand can't help us down here. I tried even though I doubted it would work. Meanwhile, more and more enemies are flooding in, and just when things look like they were over, the Queen saves the day. Royal decree kicks in and all of our ants are back out and ready to fight again. 20 seconds of free respawns is massive when you're losing tons of workers. And with that, we're able to clean up the last stragglers on nest and finish the experiment. And that's that. So to answer the question of if you can beat Empires of the Undergrowth with only workers, the answer is kinda. For every single mission apart from the final one, the answer is yes, absolutely. And for most of them, we could even do so on hard or above, only having to go down to easy a bit, like a few times. Overall, I'm very happy with this result. It went much better than I initially expected. I did try the final challenge again on easy to see if I can avoid using the hand, but nothing seemed to have changed. The enemies seemingly had the same amount of health, and I still got overwhelmed not to use it. Maybe the earlier waves have less enemies? I'm not sure. This does unlock New Game Plus for this colony, in which the pharmacaring upgrades would carry over to the story missions, but honestly, seeing just how well the humble worker performed already, I'm not sure it would really be all that interesting. Other than just some more damage, it would likely just be the same results. Might be able to push the difficulty up a little bit though. I don't know. Maybe I'll give that a try at some point, but for now, I consider this done. So thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this silly little challenge run.